going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal, Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check. This is your preview for the NXT CW debut, and that is Jake fucking DeMarco. What's going on, buddy?
Holy hell, Spaz Phoenix, the one, the only. Glad to see you, my sexy bastard. The way you always keeping it sexy for the Banana Club. I'm excited. You know, I'm pretty much at a full bunch of bananas at this point because we got All Ego Ethan Page defending his title, Trick Williams, CM Punk, special guest rep in Chicago on network television. Every home in America, at least, has access to this now, which, you know, it's not restricted by cable. You don't need to pay a single thing. So long as you have a new HD TV, it has an antenna built in, you will get to see it for free. Like, wow, that's shocking still to me how far technology has advanced in some ways.
As I say, the ratings conversation is going to be wild.
It's going to be
very, very hard for me to keep up the moratorium.
And you know what? I don't know what I'm looking forward to the most, and that's
neither do I.
A really good feeling, because it's not just the two title matches either.
No, it's everything.
I want to know what it's going to look like. I want to know what it's going to sound like. I want to know what the atmosphere is because of the arena live show that they're having. We hear that they're going to go on the road more in the future. Like, these are very exciting.
I would be happy. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think people thought, okay, both feet out the door. They're a touring brand now. Like, goodbye to the Performance Center. I don't necessarily want that.
No.
Like, do a happy mix of, like, 2 on the road, you know, 2 in the PC. Maybe vary it up a little bit. If it ends up being like a 50-50 mix of, like, house shows, or sorry, in-house shows at the Performance Center and ones on the road, because they're going to, we love NXT, we're going to have to see, as a touring brand, how drawing NXT is when it's not a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I like it, you like it, that doesn't mean that it's going to draw the same as, like, a Raw or a SmackDown. Raw and SmackDown doing particularly amazing right now. But I don't know.
We have a stacked card. I mean, everything about it. You know, It's just like this entire. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan, as we said.
Yeah.
And it just kind of has that overall feel that's been lacking, even for a little bit with NXT. Like, you and I have loved NXT, but I feel like this is like the opposite of the 2.0 rebrand. This is because that was everything. At least I despised at that point in time. Like, Vince was trying to do it colorful and characters, and I get what he was going for, but it felt a little bit too 1995.
You know what? There's
pools.
Enough people that I listen to, that I respect, that say it needed a little bit of that think that the tail end of the black and gold era was a little too gritty.
A little too indie-rific, yeah.
Not indie-rific, but like always, a lot of people, I don't include myself in this, but, you know, the hardcore rock and roll, almost black and even when they got into the Performance Center, like it was sort of dark looking. The crowd wasn't really lit well. It was this very dark,
rock,
like brooding thing almost. I liked it, but there's enough people that I listen to who I actually respect who were like, okay, this is not working for everybody. That they needed a little bit of 2.0. They didn't need all of it.
No, they certainly didn't need the unicorn vomit that came with it, but
no.
They didn't.
But here's the thing: like, back in the, like, I still now think NXT is visiting when we see them in the Performance Center, because I still genuinely love the intimate setting of back when they were at Full Sail. And I know that's 5 years ago now, but
Full Sail was great. It gave us great memories, and that's the thing. Like, NXT right now, there's as I said before, so many things in the works that it's great, but it's just like. The change is a good sense. We needed the 2.0 in a little bit, but when I say indie-rific, I mean it started to feel a little bit like a private club. Like, kind of, you had to be in the know with some of it. They were doing well with the week-to-week stories and stuff, but there wasn't a lot of, like, backstory for characters. There wasn't a lot. So they started to, like, you had good fights and reasons for fights, but there wasn't a lot of depth to the people, per se. Like, they were really starting to develop characters more into the 2.0 thing. And that's, like you said, we didn't need 100% that, but we also got away from like, hey, you know, Johnny Gargano is calling back to when he was in this match in the indie, you know, that kind of thing. So
but
at
you
least...
know what you know what it is though, right? And I said this at the time, Black and Gold, like you and I talked about it back in the day as well. In that era, and the same accusation has been thrown at AEW, so I want to try and be fair here. The whole, oh my God, somebody just showed up and I don't know who they are, or I don't know what their backstory is, or whatever. To me, that was just like, okay, on the one side of me, I'm hearing 10 or 20 people be like, oh my God, I followed that guy forever and ever and ever, and they can tell me, like, fill in the gaps type thing. But on the other side of the coin, on the more selfish side of the coin, I've got a brand new star to decide whether I like or don't like.
Exactly.
So the whole, like, the criticism, and I know that you're not being critical,
no.
but like the criticism back then of, oh, they just grabbed everybody from the indies and expected everybody to figure it out. I'm like, I liked figuring it out. My example that I always go to, Athena, who's being absolutely wasted in ROH now, when she debuted as Ember Moon, about 3 weeks before she debuted in NXT, Good Buddy Guapo, who used to be on this channel a lot more, said, hey, I just heard they're signing this girl Athena. She's really cool. I think you'll really like her. He, you know, I like the crazy chicks and all that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, so what's her deal? And he's like, stunner from the top rope. And she's kind of female Finn Balor. I'm like, sweet. Don't tell me anything else.
Yeah, and for her, that's kind of what you needed to know. And they did a good job slowly building to her. But then she got called up, but they never really did anything well with her.
True.
Then she was back in NXT, and that kind of fell to the wayside because she didn't really...
They could have utilized the tag team of her and Shotzi a lot better.
Yes, they could have done a lot better with her. And when she came back, it's not that she wasn't good enough in comparison or whatnot. It just wasn't her time right then and there. There was... Other people had worked hard, like Rhea, like Raquel, like, you know, and Io, and they were in that spot now where she was before, and her trying to slip back in, just the way it was handled wasn't great, unfortunately. And
it wasn't, but like I get why they did it as well,
either.
Because she, much like Finn Balor, when Finn Balor had his resurgence in NXT after his first call up, didn't, you know, when he was like Smiley Finn. And then he came back and was a heel, and he turned on DIY, and that was his introduction, like, okay, we're going to be doing the Prince now. I get why her second run kind of fell a little bit, but I get them putting her back because she even not reaching full potential, she was still doing better on NXT than she did in her first main roster push. So there's a balancing act, and one thing we've talked about before is they have that balancing act a lot better now.
They really do. And, you know, pretty much everything from NXT this week, not even pretty much, everything from NXT this week was a hit with me. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case every time. Usually there's something that I'm like, this wasn't great. Or, this needed some work. I didn't have that this week. Like, from start to finish, this had me. Yeah. And it, like I said, usually every show there's something, but they're firing on every goddamn cylinder. They made Kelani Jordan as the second champion look damn good still. And then obviously you had the press conference for the women's main card, you know, or main title. It's just everybody's...
I didn't like the way they did the rest of the press conference, like the whole, okay, we're going to cut away from this match because so-and-so is talking now, and they did it like interspersed among the commercial breaks. I wasn't a fan of how they did the rest of the press conference, bringing the finals. It just could have been done better. It came off as a bit janky to me. It wasn't terrible, but... like, okay, we're going to break away. Like, imagine if the post-pay-per-view press conference was happening while the pay-per-view was still happening.
I saw a lot of people feel like it was very dry or uneventful, like when they were cutting to the press conference thing, like they were waiting for something bigger. And then obviously,
and a lot of the wrestlers that look badass were basically up at the podium. It's like, I'm not answering your question. I've got nothing to say, and then fucking off.
Yeah, so, but I really did like what they were doing with the idea of a faux press conference, though. Like, you can tell it wasn't real reporters. It's probably people from the Performance Center standing there. Hey, here's my question.
You know what they could have done?
I liked it. It was new.
What they do when there's a sort of an away pay-per-view, right? And right before SmackDown, like midday, wherever they are, you know, Australia, Ireland, wherever, Canada, they did it as well. Like, they do a presser at like lunchtime. It would have been more effective if they had done something like that. Maybe hold off the Roxy and Julia thing because that was cool. That was the main event of the show. But the rest of it, just do a mini presser like that, outside the Performance Center, or if you don't need them on the show that night, do it in Chicago a week in advance or whatever, or do it over the weekend so that closer to the day people are more excited. But I understand it was all leading to the Roxy and Julia thing, which we're going to talk about.
The face-to-face.
Yeah, which we'll talk about in due course. But I do want to talk to you, get rumors and speculation out of the way. We just saw it with SmackDown as well. SmackDown's got a new look. I love it. The music still sucks. You can argue with the wall. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm
NXT's
a Stallion fan.
NXT's getting a new look, apparently, is what we've been told, roughly. What we do know, and for those of you listening, if you're listening on a video platform, if you're listening on YouTube or on Rumble, you're not going to see it because the wallpaper that I have there is the old logo. But if you are listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, I am using the newer logo that CW put out a couple of days ago on their premiere graphic as the thumbnail for that. So you'll see what I'm talking about. It's the same NXT logo, but it's not yellow. It's solid white, and it's got the black and orange trim.
Yeah, which is...
I like it.
I like it too. And, we'll get into this after. There's another point, too, when we're talking, so I don't forget, is one of the things I want you to do, and you're more elegant with your words and speaking sometimes, but I can't get my thoughts out, is one of the things I want to address, too, and it kind of coincides with this. People say we're kind of hypocritical at times because... Here, I usually be like, I need story, I need change, all this. But then you get things with NXT, and it's like, they introduced Stephanie this week. Where's the story there, huh? And it's like, you miss the point entirely. You miss the mark of what they're going for.
She's been calling out Julia. She's been calling out Julia and Stephanie since they've been dirt sheet rumors. So there is a story. I don't think we're hypocrites. I think other people don't want to admit that NXT is awesome.
You nailed it. And I think that's because they give it an unfair, there's a slight bias to it. And a lot of times it gets compared to Dynamite. And obviously they had their big Grand Slam this week. So it's kind of an idea to compare Grand Slam to the NXT October 1st CW premiere. Because in my eyes, they're
big shows. They're big cornerstone, like... flagpole moments, if you want to say it that way, right? And I mean, if you see, I know I showed you, but for anybody else out there, if you follow Stephanie M. Chase on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, she put up some pictures of her basically behind the curtain because they put up a curtain and cut the building in half, and that's where they put their press.
Yeah, and I would have been there myself, sadly, and
you had
it was
better
like,
shit to do.
Thankfully, we went to the concert because had we not, I would have been really, really disappointed. I mean, it's like, how could you be disappointed with free tickets? Hey, guess what? Beggars can't be choosers, but if you're there, I'd like to see the goddamn show.
Yeah.
I did that for Raw once when I was younger. My grandmother and I went at like a last-minute thing. My uncle was down from Springfield. He's like, Raw's going to be here tonight. I'll give you a ride. We got cheap seats, but you're there. And we were against the wall, and we couldn't really see the stage or the Tron, but it's like, all right, you're there. But to be invited as press, and then they stick you there, and they want you to gush over them and treat you like, hey, this is a huge deal.
Plus, the show
them
sucked.
Behind the screen. Well, that was my next point, but... One of my main things here is that what closed out NXT this week, the press conference and the interaction between Julia, Roxanne, and then obviously Stephanie.
Along with Byron Saxton and Funaki. Let's not forget Byron Saxton and Funaki.
Absolutely. And Funaki did a great job. And lo and behold, here we have this amazing story. But that wasn't the only women's segment of the night. And it also wasn't the only women's segment required involving titles.
There were two separate women's tag matches on the show that had nothing to do with the tag team titles.
Wendy Chu and Rosemary have another tag match coming up on the debut show. Like it's like, all right, we're cooking, we're cooking here, and I'm enjoying it. And you have people basically coming out of the woodwork now to praise the CW, and I agree. I like what they're doing here. I mean, it is exciting. We've got a lot to look forward to, and all coming back. Grand Slam, you had their women's champion Mariah May taking on, you can suck and fuck me, And it was like this quick little thing, but that was it, and it got brushed away, and all the builds up to destroying Tony Storm and being this evil, dastardly heel, and it's a quick thing, it's done and over with, forget about it. As we're, like you said, we got 3 women's segment, but the WWE NXT is not pushing it because we need the women's revolution to be a popular thing. They actually believe in their women. Well,
if you look at it, but it's variety too, and not everything is a championship, because we have one women's tag title for all 3 shows. You don't get
Thankfully.
that. You don't get that title on NXT as much, but you had, I can't even remember what we had now. You had Carmen and Brindley taking on Wendy Chu and Rosemary, and that's not only a really fun team, it's further evidence of the partnership with TNA, which is great. You had Ren Sinclair, part of the Ren QCC, going after Kalani Jordan, who is doing a phenomenal job as a brand new talent with a brand new title. You've got Roxanne Perez, who's carrying the division on her back, let's be real for a second. So much so that she's being sought after by both of the new signings. And we still haven't seen Delta yet either. I may have more to say about this later, but I just think I'm at the point now, and again, this is to a further point that I've got later on down the list, but I'm pretty sure we're getting to the point now where it's the ladies show and the guys show up sometimes. In a lot of ways, and that's no dig on Trick Williams and All Ego Ethan Page and all the other people that are going to be involved. But before we get to the show, before we talk about the matches, because the matches are going to be fun, the segments are going to be fun, we got to talk about what the show's going to look like.
Exactly. So you brought up the new logo, the white edging, but I've heard that they're going to have this white and orange kind of theme coming up. That it's supposed to be like that splash look, but a little bit more clean, not as unicorn, vomit, RGB everywhere.
You just hit on my point. And it's a point that's going to put me down a rabbit hole, and I promise nobody's going to care about this but me. Do you know the only thing I don't like about the current NXT logo that we have is that it's not the same coloring, it's not the same, when they've changed it a little bit, but it's the same NXT that they introduced with NXT 2.0.
Yes.
And what I mean is it's not the square letters and whatever. If you can picture the logo, it's got the trail off on the bottom of the N, and it's got the trail off on the other side of the T, so that it's like a triangle almost. Now, they carried that over when they made it back sort of white and gold again, and now they've carried it back over into this new... Unless this is a temporary thing and they're holding something in abeyance.
It doesn't seem like it, because the CW website is covered with that logo as well. Yeah,
but I mean, it might be a case...
It might be updated next week, you never know.
If they're planning on releasing the new logo on the night, and CW obviously has to be in on the gimmick, then
I mean, I could also go transgender, and you could be calling me Julie by then, too. Anything's possible, but... we see what...
And if my aunt had nuts, she'd be my uncle. Anyways, but it put me down a rabbit hole for a second, right? We talk about the logo. The logo is everything and nothing. It's an impact. It means something. We took out like you say, the spray paint colors and all that kind of thing. It looks better. I still miss the old chrome one that everybody else hated with the big skull in the middle. I loved it. We need it back.
I really enjoyed that one as well. And when I look back, I even didn't. That's the one with the eagle wings, right?
Yes.
Kind of. Yeah. I liked that one a lot.
It was the full excess of what the people that didn't like it didn't like.
Yeah,
they took a hard turn, and as I say, I liked it, but I get people that didn't like it.
Yeah, because they used to have the very big X with the smaller N and T, and they were block lettering, and the WWE logo was directly in the middle of the X, and was perfect.
And here's where I'm going with this, right? Because the only other remnant of NXT 2.0 is the main men's and women's championships are the multicolored plate, right? Not a huge deal. I was looking at that, and then as I go across the belt graphics on the website, obviously the color thing is a separate conversation. But that NXT logo with the trail off on the T and the trail off on the N, it's on the men's title, it's on the women's title. The older NXT logo is still on the North American Championship. The newer NXT logo is on the Women's North American Championship. The old logo is on the Heritage Cup, and the old logo is on the tag titles. So using this as an opportunity to get rid of the rainbow fart belts would be a good way of bringing those belts into sequence, because half of them are and half of them aren't. And yes, I'm counting the Heritage Cup as a belt, but you get my drift.
Yeah, because that Winged Skull and Giant X came, I think, in 2021, April-ish. And I've always had a thing for phoenixes. I have a tattooed phoenix on my arm.
Boom.
My best co-host partner right there is Spaz Phoenix. It's all related.
It's all related, yes.
Exactly. It's all, simpatico. But, like you said, the only one I never cared for was the rumored redesign that I showed you there. Kind of like the lightning bolt one.
Whoa.
That's not a good look.
That's ugly. It doesn't even look like letters.
No, and that's why I like the original block lettering. And people are like, oh, you guys are talking about a logo? Well, yeah, it matters because that's what people see.
And the other thing is, right, and here's something where I will say NXT is better than WWE, right? Because WWE will have their men's... The titles look the same, which is fine because you want to show equality, and I'm actually on board with that, right? Like
brand unity,
Well, not necessarily brand unity, but like between the men and the women, the women's world title, the men's world title, like...
I'm saying like making it equal on both shows.
Yeah. But, like, if you look at Raw, for example, the world title and the women's world title are the same belt, except they throw the women's plate on a white strap to say...
And a lipstick holder in the back.
Yeah, well, that's true, too. But, like, it's this whole, like, the women are different, we'll give them the white strap, whatever. The old NXT belts weren't like that. The only difference was there was a little bit of silver on the plate for the women's championship. Yeah. And it was solid gold for the men's, but they were both on black belts. They both looked legit. And then when they switched them over, they took the WWE, everything for the women has to be on a white strap for their women's title and their women's North American Championship. And I'm going to say it, I don't like the white straps on any of them. I like the sort of the maroon strap on the North American Championship.
Yeah, that fits perfectly.
But I mean, you've got belts that are virtually identical. And it gives, like I said, it gives a bit of parity, it gives a bit of scope, it gives a little bit of equality. Mm-hmm. Don't do that, because the people that are going to take that discrepancy and run with it are going to do some damage. But also the logos across all of them. I didn't notice it until I was doing this and going across all the belts, because literally half of them have one logo on them and half of them have the other. So it's a bit weird. I would love them to get rid of the trail off on the NXT logo itself. I would love them to use this as an opportunity to get rid of the rainbow belts because I think they look silly.
Well, the original logo, like you said, too, with the strong block lettering and the big X, suited the championship title so well, too, because, like
not the first one, though. Not the first one that looked square.
No, the one after that. Yeah. The one they went with for the... Yeah, exactly. I should specify.
Basically, the ones we have now without the rainbows on them.
Exactly.
But I just thought, like, if we're going to talk about what things look like, and... I don't know if whatever they change on the road is going to change in the PC as well. But the way their entrance has that little thing down the center, it looks like a tube, and it's got graphics on it, and it looks like somebody stood up a toilet paper tube and put the graphics all the way around it. Just flatten it out.
You just to roll it down a little bit.
I don't want things to be super simple, but like just give me a Tron. Like,
you know what? One of the things that I'm not disagreeing either. Get the Tron, good to go. But one of the things that I appreciate about the current logo with the white and the kind of like the trail off on it is that it doesn't have the WWE logo in it. Now go figure. I like the other one because it did, but I like that it doesn't because it kind of makes them truly feel like their own thing. Like, hey, you guys aren't just developmental. I don't think. Yeah, you are NXT.
The gold one right now doesn't have that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
I don't even think the Rainbow and Unicorn Farts logo had the WWE logo on it.
Nope. I'm just saying I used to love it in the original one right in the middle, but now when I look at it, I'm like, it's nice because it's their own brand per se, but it's really like it's not WWE presents our underlings. No, it's not
the Little Brother brand. But it's like, if you look at it right now, even if you go online on Twitter, on X, etc., and people are using their hashtags, using their Twitter handles, etc., it's not at NXT, it's not hashtag NXT, it's at WWE NXT.
Yeah.
So I would take what you're saying there and apply it to their social media presence, apply it to their presentation as well. Yeah. Not to divorce them per se, because they're more closely linked now than they used to be. So it's a really funny time to be asking for the WWE thing to not be there, but I am on board with you because NXT still. still feels different, even though it's closer to the Big Brother brand than before.
You nailed it.
I hope we get a new
different.
theme. I hope it's not fucking rap.
I hope not either. Like I said, Slipknot fit so well with that time and place, and We Are Not Your Kind really worked because they were not our kind. They were not for everybody.
I'm just saying, Heavy is the Crown.
Oh my God!
New Linkin Park.
Amazing.
Heavy is the Crown. It's already being used on some video game, I think.
Yes.
Heavy is the Crown. New Linkin Park. I know it's a controversial subject. I'm not going to dig into it here. But Heavy is the Crown by Linkin Park would be an awesome intro for NXT. But half the time...
Emptiness Machine was a great debut song for them to introduce Emily. But this one would be a great theme.
I just think with all the
lyrics,
with all the Crown iconography and the fact that this was originally Triple H's baby, the King of Kings, everybody going for a title is going for a crown.
It was like it was written for him, basically.
But it was written for the brand because everybody on the brand is trying to achieve something before they go on to the big boy company and try to achieve more. I think it would just fit.
And one of the things...
There's my pitch for new NXT. Heavy is the Crown by Linkin Park. And yes, it's still Linkin Park. Idiots on Twitter.
Absolutely. I don't want to see them doing, screaming, it's all just metal. But like Linkin Park is a good balance because there's singing, there's yelling, there's heavier tones, there's distortion. I love them as well.
And bring back Poppy as the NXT house band.
I would be happy with that too. I like everything she's done with them has been excellent. Yeah. Her bringing out Io Shirai, that was awesome. That stands out to me.
You and I said it at the time. The way she so quickly felt like part of the NXT furniture was awesome.
Yeah. Like when Rhea walked out at Mania and Motionless in White was playing and like they didn't miss a beat and they were interacting, the singer and her, and it just everything that like it was like, oh, this fits, that's her, this is it to a T, like this is.
Do you know what else? Do you know what else I just thought of? And I'm sorry, I realized I just cut you off.
No,
I just thought of that I loved about old school NXT because they're going darker with the logo, because they might go darker with some better music and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Bring back the black ring canvas.
Ooh. Now that
black
with
yellow ropes for the weekly show, black with white ropes for the pay-per-views. Bring it back, man. The black canvas. I know, as you said, like people are going to say it doesn't matter. It does. It made NXT look so different.
Absolutely.
And it made the black canvas made everybody that stepped onto it stand out more.
That's a great point. And you know what? Like you said, yeah, you need something else to stand out with. That's a great way to do it. And as I was saying before too, like again, it sounds like I'm always shitting on AEW, but this is the problem right now. Mm-hmm. You have these different shows that don't feel any different.
Well, because they're being filmed back to back to back.
Exactly. So they did AEW Grand Slam obviously this past Wednesday, and then when Danny and I had gone the year before, we left for their main event of Rampage because that was 2 hours too, and it was like how much we left for their
Jake.
You went to Collision, I remember.
I did. I went to Collision. I saw CM Punk in an awesome 8-man tag, and then I saw him the next night at Forbidden Door. Yes, AEW got 2 tickets out of me, and both of those tickets were because of CM Punk. Listen to it and cry. You know what I think would be really awesome now? Because of their working relationship. Imagine instead of a big wide Tron, narrow Tron. And on either side of the Tron, you've got the NXT tunnel and the TNA tunnel.
Ooh.
Let's fucking go!
That would be cool. Now, speaking of this, here's something interesting, too. There's heavy talk of Moose making his NXT debut.
Nice, let's go.
Now, to see him show up for this show, there's so many places that he could immediately fit right into. And it doesn't just have to be for the main title either. Could you picture him and Obafemi?
Him and Obafemi is the match I want to see. They have to square the hole of he's just come off of being TNA's world champion recently. You have to find a way to make it make sense that if he's going to come to NXT, why isn't he going for Ethan Page / Trick Williams?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. You have to make that make sense. But yeah, Moose and Obafemi is the match that I want to see for sure.
People are thinking that Tony D is bringing him in, maybe. And I've heard that as an idea
well,
that
was the rumor a couple of weeks ago when Tony D brought in Hammerstone, which was another great thing.
Absolutely. So now they're saying, hey, maybe since he did this, he'll have another one come over, and he's eventually basically hired hitman per se. I was like, oh, it could be interesting, but I could certainly see them pushing for the Obafemi match, certainly, and I guarantee they'll give you a good story to boot. And we're overflowing with it right now, and that's the thing. Like I really
hope, and people that have heard me talk about TNA for the last little while, Jake and I have had opportunity to talk about it as well, will not be surprised when I say, if you're gonna have Moose show up on NXT, have it just be Moose.
Yes,
I don't need the system.
No.
I need Shock the system, but I don't need the system at all. I really don't, and that sucks because individually they're great. Individually, Eddie Edwards is great. Alicia Edwards is an awesome, annoying heel. What's his name? Matt Cardona's buddy.
Oh my God. The figure collector, him. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Him. He's also there. It's fine.
I always forget his name. Damn it. It'll come to me eventually. But
the other thing I was going to say, just rumor mill stuff. We're going to get into more tag team rumors later on. But they're being teased on Raw already. But what would you think of the return of the War Raiders on NXT?
That would be interesting to see them kind of, go ahead and make that.
I want to see them mix it up with Hank and Tank is why.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun for them to just kind of run through, because the tag division, I think, is probably the thing that's lacking right now in NXT. And Axiom,
but they're sneakily bringing it up, though.
That's with the Grayson Waller effect. That was a really good segment. And
both teams that are about to split kind of face each other.
But you know what? It worked because of that, and it worked with how they treated it.
We're gonna get to it, but I wouldn't mind an A-Town Down Under run on NXT. I really wouldn't. If Axiom and Nathan Frazier break up, we get another best of 7 out of them. It is
no doubt.
It is. But so I think we've talked to death now what the show might look like, what the show might sound like.
Well, one of the things I want to bring up as well, and Brian Myers, there is his name.
Yeah, there we go.
I couldn't think of it.
He's there
goodness.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Myers, when he shows up, he's definitely there.
Going as WWE's Kurt Hawkins. It's like so. I really appreciate brand synergy, when USA, they really put we got WWE Week, here we fucking go, and the CW is doing that in spades right now. They have found a treasure trove of content to put up on their site, and they have made a full hard push into selling NXT, and I couldn't be happier. The website has a full redo now, so as soon as you go to just CW TV, it pops up with everything NXT. And
you had to show it to me because we can't see it in Canada.
Yeah,
which is weird.
I guess on that day too, it's going to be one of the cards that's right up top. And as soon as you go into the site, it says next available episode. It shows you when. So that's episode 40 coming up. It gives you a 30-second preview, then a minute preview, then it gives you a recap. But right here, it's got Trick Williams, Roxanne, Oba, Wesley, Tony D, Sol Ruka, etc. Izzy Dame, Eddie Thorpe. All these people have 2-minute, 3-minute quick summarizing biographies. Who they are, what do they stand for. Josh Briggs, he journeyed to NXT and promises to be a true threat among the brand's rising stars. And they give you history. They
didn't just bring them in and drop them into a slot. They are saying this is going to be one of the flagpoles of our programming week. This is something we are taking seriously. This is something we hope you take seriously. It's great. And I will say, on the point about the synergy, which I think I've already used that word way too many times, really, really cool. The week that SmackDown went to USA, that USA did WWE week across all 3 shows, knowing that they were about to lose NXT. They could have very easily said, yeah, we'll do it on Raw and SmackDown, and NXT can fuck off because you're taking it away anyway. But, very cool to see, a solid week for the 1 or 2 weeks that they were all on the same channel. speaking for myself, up in Canada, where Sportsnet 360, all the shows have always been on the same channel.
Right.
But it is what it is. Like from like I say, the outsider looking down at you guys for the very, very brief period of time that USA had all 3 shows, it was very cool for them to include the show that they knew was leaving.
Absolutely.
And I mean, vice versa. NXT did a good video package this week on like, hey, here's our best moments from USA Network, and you know,
on there they also have for the NXT side of things, top 10 moments from the past like 8 weeks of shows. And they go down into some of the TNA invasion, and they have top 10 moments of like overall. It's just it's nice to feel that full steam ahead. We're going to put everything into it.
You know what I love in that video package as well?
What's that?
That video package that they showed on NXT this week. They weren't shy about featuring the people that are now elsewhere. They had Adam Cole in there. They had the Undisputed Era in there. They had Keith Lee in there. There was no, oh, these people don't exist just because they're not here anymore, which has happened in the past. Let's be real. But also heavy, heavy representation of that December 18th episode of NXT, the night we beat Dynamite.
Yes, lot to do there. That was when Rhea won. You know, we had
that was the night that started with Adam Cole versus Finn Balor and ended with Shayna Baszler versus Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, Shayna Baszler, that's what it was.
I'm going to review that show at some point as part of NXT Rewind when I get to that point, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with it.
Exactly. Hey, speaking of reviewing, we're going to be doing a special on my channel this week on youtube.com/ I think it's Countdown Ended Altogether. But you can find me on there, as we always plug it. Spaz, at some point, we'll figure it out. Hopefully be joining me or something. We'll make it work in the future. But I'm excited to review this episode, whether it be a one-off or not. You know, if I keep doing it. But still, I've had so much fun with the watch-alongs, and I'm just really, really looking forward to this. So, you know, going forward, we might do NXT.
I don't say it as much as I should. You guys need to go check out Jake doing the whole watch-along thing. I don't necessarily have the mentality for it, but he's found himself a good little group. So go.
It's a lot of fun.
Head over to Countdown Ended. He's killing it over there. No, not just over here giving me the rub. Giggity.
That's right. So I'm looking to be posted more, and go ahead, and NXT feels the way to go. You know, it's like you and I get to cover it here, and we talk about like what's coming up, and there at least I can just do like in the moment live reactions, so it doesn't affect either which way, and you know it makes everything just work nicely. And that's the thing. I'm seeing the community kind of come back together, and it's nice. People don't want to watch wrestling alone; they're coming through for the watch-alongs, and we're getting that camaraderie again, which is nice. You see it. You know, wrestling's back on top. No, it's never going to be where it was in the Attitude Era.
But we're reaching a different kind of Attitude Era, though, in size, in scope, in the fact that it's part of the fabric of everything that's going on. It's not this gigantic successful thing that's happening over in a corner. It's sort of no, it's not the Attitude Era, but this is our version. This is our 2024 Attitude Era.
I'm not even talking about the booking or anything. Just strictly in like viewership sense as well.
As to how it's seen.
People will never be that number or extent of volume on TV watching cable or with streaming and all these things like. So I'm curious to see, especially with Netflix, if they're going to release any type of viewership numbers or what that will be, because.
Netflix is all over the world, so those ratings conversations, if they do even happen, will be absolutely insane.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm hoping they do release numbers, just because I'm curious to see what it would be. But
I do like, and it's shady for me to say because it means I don't have to do anything. I do enjoy watching watch-alongs. I used to tune into my TV and I'd sync up with What Culture when they used to do them a lot, and they were a lot of fun. They don't do them so much anymore, but you're starting to do it again. I know I've said this to you before, but the Wrestling for Life Network, those guys over there, KJ and Nick.
Shout out to those guys.
Shout out to those guys. Have been doing their thing for a long time. I stumbled on them recently just because I was looking for something else to watch along with. So. There is, if you add up the amount of people that are watching wrestling, and you add up the amount of people that are now tuning in and interacting with people that are watching wrestling, I think you're way closer to your Attitude Era comparison than you might think.
Than I might realize. Absolutely, you're not wrong. That's for sure.
Anyways, that was a lot of waffle, and that was a lot of good shout-outs in there. Go check out Jake. Go check out the Wrestling for Life Network. And, I mean, yeah, if What Culture starts doing their thing again, go check them out, too, but they don't need me to plug them. We don't know what NXT is going to look like, but we've fumbled through a prediction of what it might look like.
I certainly think they're going to have a new stage, at least a new layout in some form, especially with them traveling and not being set up in the
It's going to have to change
center.
depending on the size. We know we had the conversation last week about how they moved the October 8th show to a smaller venue. So one thing about creating a show's new look, it's one thing to set up how it looks in the Performance Center, because the Performance Center is the same every week. When you're making a look for a touring show, you have to make a look that can look different on a dime as well. So I think, at least in the initial reaction to whatever they give us on the first, allow some flexibility as viewers, because that's almost definitely going to change when they get to, what is it, Chesterfield? On the week of the 8th. And then we don't know whether they go right back to the Performance Center or not. How does their new look then translate back into the Performance Center again? Like, there's a lot to contend with, and it's a lot of first stuff for that brand. So they've got a big, wide path of benefit of the doubt, at least from my point of view.
Yes.
But I'm interested to see what they do. And I hope whatever they do works. And you know what? After everything that we've said so far, we might actually want to talk about the matches that are happening. I've kind of got week one. We're going to talk about both weeks, because next week Jake and I are going to be diving deep into Bad Blood, and I think that's going to take up the whole pod. So we're kind of going to look at both weeks. I've got it listed here in the order that I think it's going to happen. So I'm starting off with Trick versus Ego, with Punk as the ref for the NXT Championship. I think it's going to start off with a bang. I think the first thing, it's not to take anything away from Trick or Ego. You're in Chicago. You want the first stinger to be Cult of Personality, to get people off their feet, started off the right way.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong there either. And having that open the show makes sense, because they'd probably save Julia for the end. Yeah, because I mean, they even closed the show with the women. It certainly feels like that could absolutely be a logical possibility. They kind of do that lately, don't they? Where, like, I always go back to Seth and Brock. If I'm not going to be last, I want to go on first.
Top and tail works. There's a big. I just mentioned the Wrestling for Life Network. They had a debate about it the other night about, like, do you start big, have rest periods, have gaps, have downtime, have another big match, whatever, or do you do the constant crescendo? Honestly, I think both can work, so I don't know where I sit completely. But we remember the days for years, before they got into world title contention, the Hardy Boys were almost always the first match, because the Hardy Boys got people up off the ground. So it did kind of set a precedent that way. I'm going to start this, before we talk about the match itself, I'm going to start off with one fear that I have here.
Okay.
We talked about how NXT and the main roster are in a whole lot better synergy now than they used to be. So stories from one can bleed into the other. I don't want any Drew McIntyre bullshit involved in this. Like, it's the NXT title match.
Yes.
I can understand why they would, because this, NXT doesn't exist in a bubble, Raw doesn't exist in a bubble. I can understand Drew following Punk, because literally they're going to be in a cage a couple days later.
Yeah,
I really hope they resist that urge and let this be what it is, because this is a big night for NXT. It's obviously going to be a big night for the World Championship. Punk as the ref makes sense, because we all know how involved Punk is with NXT these days. We don't need to see Drew McIntyre on that show. I'm sorry, we don't.
Yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with you there, and I didn't even actually consider that to be a possibility until you mentioned it right now, honestly. So now I'm very, very hopeful that doesn't happen. That's the last thing I want to see come to fruition, because, like you said, we already have the match coming, and I don't want it to affect everything that they've been building and trying to do with this match. And you know what? You and I have said this before. It's not a cop-out, but I am like, bashing my head back and forth to really figure out and assume who in their right mind is going to win this match. I see it going so many different ways, and it's does Punk not get the count right, or something happens, and it's like there's just, if I'm going to go with my gut, as much as Trick Williams is over, I almost don't see him winning here. I think we see Page retain.
So and because Punk spent all this week saying, hey, I hope you win, Trick. I'm going to raise your hand, da-da-da-da. But if Ego wins, I'm going to have to raise his hand. And then Ego said to him to his face, yeah, I'm going to win, and you're going to have to raise my hand. And that, in Chicago, I know it's not always about where they are, but when they're in Chicago, it's kind of about where they are. That's going to get immense heat. And I think to not only to balance out the fact that I think Julia and Roxy are the main event, I think that result is why it goes first.
Ooh.
So you don't send the crowd home pissed.
Yeah. No. I think
you start the show off with Punk because I'm sorry, like all due respect to NXT, there's a lot of people that are going to this show for CM Punk.
Absolutely.
And so you kick off the match, or so you kick off the night with the guy they want to see. He's the ref. He's trying to do things the right way because he's not actually the asshole AEW fans will tell you that he is. He does it so the right way that even when the asshole wins, he has to raise his hand. Maybe it leads to like a little bit of an interaction or some sort of conflict between Punk and Ego for like a week or two. Maybe Ego comes and fucks him over at Hell in the Cell. I wouldn't mind that. I would rather have that than Drew interfering here because I'm way more protective of NXT.
And
Bad Blood's
totally
kind of bulletproof
why.
at this point. So
yeah, and I totally understand why too. Because I mean, it's just like, oh, of course, who would want to deal with? Because you're going to ruin the NXT thing just to push the main roster more. Like that would really unless they have a payoff where like, oh, Punk's going to be taking on Ethan Page non-title, like something like that, which I don't see happening.
I wouldn't mind that as a, old lion, young lion, I'm going to whip this kid into shape kind of story. It can be very loose. It can be very light. It can be very NXT, but Punk's involved in NXT, whether people want to accept that or not. He's going to want to give somebody the rub. He's going to want to pick his next Darby Allin.
Exactly.
And I don't get me wrong, I think Darby Allin was a great choice for his first match in AEW because Darby Allin's actually, good.
Perfect match.
It was really fun too. It was really,
Absolutely.
really fun. And the fact that he just walked into the building on the first night and said, yeah, by the way, I want to fight you, and he just points up into the rafters. That was cool. That was back when AEW did cool shit.
Yeah.
But no, like Punk doing a little something with Ego. And I'm sorry, from an advertising point of view, and that's a really boring way to take it, imagine being able to advertise for one of your weekly shows in the next couple of months. All Ego Ethan Page is going to defend the NXT Championship against CM fucking Punk. That's a marketer's dream. You don't put that week in the Performance Center. You go back to fucking Chicago again.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I'm
going back to square one.
Yeah, I'm going with Ego.
Yeah,
I think we agree on that one.
Yeah.
No Drew interference, please.
No, I really hope not, and I really don't see it being that way. I mean, anything's possible, but it seems like he retains here because Trick's already been a champion. He's going to be over on the main roster.
Yep.
They have big plans with Trick. And I think that we get a better payoff down the line, possibly with somebody else. I mean, I could see a few different stars being what they're building towards.
I hope if they bring him up after this, I hope he goes to Raw. Because it's the very predictable route to throw him on SmackDown and throw him right back in there with Carmelo.
Yeah.
Because in NXT, you had Carmelo Hayes, who was this star, and like Trick Williams was kind of his sidekick, his Diesel and whatever, and then he got more over. He's already more over to the main roster audience than Carmelo is. So I don't think you help Carmelo with all the stuff that he's doing with his best of 10 million series with Andrade right now is doing really cool stuff. He's building himself up slowly. I think if you bring Trick in there, you just squash Melo and not in a way that's productive. But you got a lot of big guys fighting each other on Raw right now. I mean, it's not a 1-for-1 comparison, but Trick Williams versus Braun Strowman. Could be fun. Moose versus Braun Strowman versus Trick Williams. Let's get all the brands in there.
Yeah.
All right. Next thing I want to talk about is not a match, but it's to set up a match for week 2. It's Miz TV with Tony D and Obafemi. Forget Obafemi for a second. We're gonna have Tony D on Miz TV.
Right. And
this is and again, excuse another What Culture reference, but this is an Adam Wilborn wet dream.
Right, and this is a face interaction for Miz as well, not a heel. Yeah. So it's like even that adds a bit more of like levels to it, which is, like I am excited to see what comes out of this. This is kind of what makes me think again, being like, oh well, do we see, like we said, do we see Tony D bring somebody in, or what's our end?
The only thing that bums me out about this, right, and feel like I'm bringing like negativity out of the positivity. When they announced that there was going to be Miz TV, I was hoping that we wouldn't know who the guest was going in, because we could speculate, oh my god, it's going to be Ricky Starks, oh my god, it's going to be Motor City Machine Guns, oh my god, it's going to be this and that, right?
Side note, Ricky Starks looks incredible. He put on a ton of muscle.
Nice.
And he's gained some mass, and he put on a photo the other day, and he looks like a whole new beast.
If only he worked for a company that knew how to use him. Anyways... Maybe he does.
Dun, dun, dun.
But
we don't know yet.
I bring another possibility to your attention.
Yes.
Say Obafemi and Tony D have a bit of a scrap. Tony D gets knocked out to look like the underdog going into next week, and then the next thing you see is Obafemi staring down Miz TV, staring down the Miz rather. Lights go out, and then you hear, "This is war."
Oh, right.
Can you imagine Wardlow debuts as Miz's latest sidekick, and we get Wardlow on NXT taking on Obafemi later on at the next
show?
When's
the last time have we seen Wardlow?
I don't know.
That's the thing. It's been so long now, and it just feels like, oh, he's truly forgotten about. Like, no one gives a shit about the poor guy, and he's gone nowhere fast for a long
when he came back, like, credit where it's due, people did give a shit when he came back, and then he disappeared just as quickly.
And then he got that big victory over MJF in 3 seconds for the powerbomb, and then it was all about MJF. They forgot about him.
But I mean, and let me be clear, I know I've said it sarcastically 1,000 times. Miz is not MJF. I'm not saying that. But Wardlow in Miz's corner could play a very familiar role. I'm just saying.
Really could.
You could be a babyface with a bodyguard, couldn't you?
Absolutely.
Or if Miz is just like, hey, I've had my eye on this guy for a while, it's my pleasure to introduce him to you, the NXT audience, and he introduces Wardlow, fucks off back to Raw, and now you have Wardlow to deal with on NXT. And Wardlow goes after Obafemi. Because, spoiler alert, I don't think Tony D is winning the title on night 2, but we'll get there when we get there. The part of it that's really bonkers for me is Tony D on Miz TV. Because that means Miz is going to meet the family.
Yeah.
We're going to, in the same ring, we're going to have Mike the Miz Mizanin and Adriana Rizzo, the Riz, and Stax.
The Riz. Yeah, there's
Luca
lot
Crucifino with his no-sleeve suit. It's weird.
There's a lot to be excited about.
It's weird. I like it.
Yeah, and it's Raw's had some good stuff. Obviously, last couple weeks and months has been interesting and fun. And
Miz is mixing it up with the big guys on Raw as well.
Exactly. So it's like,
if
what
Miz
do we
walks
get?
up to fucking Obafemi and says something along the lines of, I just stared down Braun Strowman, you think I'm scared of you, and then gets tossed into the 5th row like an empty tracksuit, I'm going to laugh a lot.
I would love to see
It's going to be 2024's version of Keith Lee pouncing Adam Cole. Remember when people properly used them? Jesus Christ. Right. But yeah, no, it's going to be fun. Miz knows what he's doing at this point. He's like... I'm effusive with my praise of The Miz in such a boring way. He's such a good multi-tool person to have around in WWE. And it sounds like I'm damning him with faint praise, but like that's valuable.
No, you're absolutely right.
It really is. And I don't think Miz is hanging around on NXT, but if we get to 2 or 3 weeks from now and we have a squash match with Obafemi, Jesus Christ!
I was not exaggerating, was I?
He just sent me a picture of Ricky Starks, guys.
From the waist down, I told you, like a horse. But no, if you look at his back, I mean, his back is ripped. He's got these crazy calf muscles now. Like, he's just been working on his body.
And the picture's taken really funny, so it looks like he has a gigantic head.
Yeah, it's
got
like that. because he's taking the picture into a mirror, and it's one of those tall mirrors, and he's got a kind of a forward angle, so it makes him look even more like elongated and stretched out. But he certainly
looks like the prototypical alien from a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Anyways,
with hair and lips.
moving swiftly on. Wesley versus Zachary Wentz in a street fight. Unfortunately, not for the X Division Championship. I question that decision.
I do as well.
TNA,
I'm not a fan of that.
That's a different. I think that's kind of a different conversation for a different day. The most logical thing is Trey Miguel comes back from injury and helps Zachary Wentz have his buddies back, etc. I do kind of wonder because
I think that'll be the rubber match outcome.
Yeah. Well, I think Wesley's going to win anyways, or if Trey Miguel's involved, he's not going to be 100% because I think he was injured in real life.
Yes, he was actually, I believe.
So if Trey comes down to try and like talk some sense, it's very similar to some thoughts I'm having about Big E with the New Day. But if Trey Miguel is already injured, comes down, tries to talk some sense into them because, it's gone too far or whatever, and Wesley takes him out, again, Zach Wentz is going to do something, but he'll also make a mistake because he's like the more passionate team member and he's the good guy and he's upset and whatever. Because the first time they fought, Zach Wentz did have the X Division Championship just from winning it 2 days prior. It's making me wonder, it wouldn't make any sense, and I want to preface this with the fact that it wouldn't make any sense. It makes me wonder if we see Mike Bailey. Like, just because he happens to be the X Division champion now, and he's got this abiding respect for Zachary Wentz, how he won it in the first place in Ultimate X, which is like the big marquee TNA match, and then they went to war one-on-one. Mike Bailey got his title back, but there was still a show of respect there. So I wonder if he also is going to be there, kind of having Zach Wentz's back, and for the good guy to have that much backup almost ensures that there's going to be some fuckery. I mean, also, I'm kind of biased. Mike Bailey, saw him at Destiny. Check it off your Spaz Phoenix bucket list. It's fine. Would love to see him at NXT, much like Trey Miguel, former Destiny Next Generation champion.
Speaking of Trey, he did have minor surgery. He is injured, but every site that I see just says issues of the medical kind. Nothing about what, when, where, why, or how. So maybe he got one of his testicles, replaced with a super powerful testosterone-fueled goddamn nut, and now he will forever be the ultimate X Division champion going ahead. But
and you know what it is? We're kind of spoiled for information when it comes to like how people are doing with stuff. If he doesn't want his shit out there at the same time, and I know that this is not anything about what with you bringing this up. I'm just saying in general, it's like, oh, well, so-and-so hasn't been around in a while and we haven't heard anything. And it's like, we hear a lot about a lot of people that's not really any of our business.
Exactly. Like for the longest time, a prime example would be, Brody Lee, Luke Harper. And you were like, where is he? He disappeared off TV. He was fighting Cody and then he's gone. And then, oh my God, he's passed away. Like, so I see both sides of it, and there's
on a happier note though. On a happier note though, as far as stuff that's none of our business, really.
Yes.
Ruby Soho and Angelo Parker had their kids, so they've got a nice little family now.
Mazel tov. That's a great thing. And they did say Trey will be back soon. It's minor. He had minor surgery. So and you've got him calling Wesley a bitch for the attack, and and that happened in Ohio.
Okay. I'm glad you reminded me of this because I was going to forget that little. We never really got to have the back and forth because the back and forth happened during commercial break while we were trying to set up. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing, though. Wesley, Zachary Wentz, who's the babyface? Right? Answer the question. Who's the babyface?
It's supposed to be Wentz.
It's Zachary Wentz, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Jada Pinkett and Will Smith are assholes. Assholes.
To the nth degree.
Why do you have the babyface quoting an asshole that committed assault on national television?
That was bizarre.
Bad choice. And I know they were going for the pop, and they were going for the insider. Yeah, we know in real life he's dating Gigi Dolan, which is fine. If everybody involved is okay with that part of their life being exposed, I'm not against it.
Because they're like, tell Gigi don't watch. And
Yeah. And I mean, I'm assuming that she's okay with that, and he's okay with that, and everybody's made their plan behind the scenes, whatever. I don't have a problem with what they did that way, but You gave the Will Smith line to your babyface. Will Smith shouted that in a room, ruining an awards show right before he assaulted somebody in real life.
Exactly. So you want to
It's not a huge deal. It's not as huge as I'm making it. I'm way looking forward to this match, and I enjoyed that segment. But what are we doing?
But here's the thing too. Like, if it was just a normal show, we would probably be focused on that and more of this. But because here's the thing, I'm not going to say this has been perfect with the Rascals. They came back, and I was so excited. Probably not even as excited as you, and I was damn excited. We were happy to see them return, and then it just kind of became, because of they broke up really quick, and was like, oh, we didn't get that long, or even a short run of them being, champs. I think they could have done more with it that way before the turn.
I was going for it because I'm heavy on the justice for Zachary Wentz thing, right?
Yes.
I think I've made that point perfectly clear in other pods, right? It's like, oh, if they had won the tag championships, they could have been. He could have stayed on NXT a bit more. We could have gotten some Trey Miguel matches. It would have been a lot of fun. So we're not going to do that because they're not champions. You know how else you keep them on the show? Give them an NXT feud.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, at some point we got to get Wes Lee versus Trey Miguel in a one-on-one match. I don't care. I don't care whether they do it on TNA. I don't care whether they do it in NXT, because more of the history, this is the other cool thing about this story, more of the history between these three guys is from TNA than from NXT. It's just playing out in NXT right now.
Yeah.
So,
and I wasn't thrilled with the way they handled the title change, and because you figure, all right, you're the X Division champion, you don't defend it against Wes on your match on Sunday. That was a little less than stellar, and then he just kind of loses it to Speedball, and I'm like, oh, well, that was very short and
it did make for a cool moment for Jordynne Grace, so that she could technically say she was the first one to defend a TNA championship on an NXT program. Now, would it have been cool for Wentz? Absolutely. But you know what? The people at the head of this, whatever you want to call it, this talent exchange, this working relationship, whatever, they're all people that I like. It's Jordynne Grace, it's Joe Hendry, it's the Rascals story, it's Spooky Chew and Rosemary doing cool stuff. So not only is the working relationship cool, there's all kinds of, specifically the ladies from the NXT division going over to TNA and getting some different exposure, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
All the strongest threads of this relationship are all people that I really enjoy. And the people that are coming over to NXT from TNA are the same people that are the reason I'm watching TNA. So it fits exactly what I want to see. And the Rascals being tag champs would have kept them on NXT longer. The Rascals fighting each other also keeps them on NXT longer. I want to see Mike Bailey, though. I think that would be a lot of fun. Mike Bailey versus Javon Evans would be a lot of fun.
We've got more from Javon coming up, obviously. There's a lot of things in the works, and it's all very exciting. But like you said, too, it's like, how much... what I mean? Like, I do get worried, and I don't want to see things over, because we have right off the bat here three dream match scenarios, and we've gotten it before, but a street fight stipulation between the Rascals is nuts. We got the men's title, which we already pretty much said is going to be a one and done with Ego, Ethan, and then we obviously have the women's. Like, this is stacked. This is massive. This feels big.
Before we get to the main event, there's one other match on here that just feels like it's a match from a weekly show, except I have a prediction. You got Lola Vice and Jada Parker. Oh my God, can they coexist?
Yeah.
Versus 2 out of 3 members of Fatal Influence. Obviously, Fatal Influence are not going to tell us which members. It's probably going to be Tatum Paxley and JC, or sorry, not Tatum. Fallon Henley and JC Jane with Jasmine Nix on the outside. But they could swap it out. They could put the newbie in there for some stuff.
Yeah, certainly.
Obviously, this is going to break down into a 3-on-2 situation.
Yeah.
And
it's coming.
It leaves all kinds of opportunity for a mystery third person to come out, make the save, make it into a 3-on-3. And the way I see it, it's either going to be Kalani Jordan, because she doesn't have a title defense either week, or it's going to be somebody from TNA.
Okay,
I would love to see somebody from TNA that we haven't already seen. I would love to see like a Xia Brookside or an Ash by Elegance or a Tasha Steelz or whatever. I predict this match, as it's advertised right now, doesn't have a finish. And it becomes a 3-on-3. It's going to be a 3-on-3 tag trios match, player. Either with Kalani Jordan going the more predictable route, or wanting to make another splash, you have somebody from TNA show up
and handle this. Yeah,
like imagine Lola Vice and Jada Parker are two pretty tough ladies already, taking on Fatal Influence, who are basically just like snotty Barbie doll attitude type people, right?
Yeah.
Now, what happens if you got Lola Vice and Jada Parker? What happens if you add a Masha Slamovich? What happens if you add a Killer Kelly just had a kid? Different story. What happens if you add a Jody Threat?
Yeah.
Or, like you said, there's always the other option, which is becoming more common now, of they just bring down somebody from the main roster. The other one that I could see them throwing into this, just because she has also been coming down to NXT a little bit, is Mi Chin.
Yes.
She had the rivalry with Jada Parker, but she could do the whole, like, I don't like you, but I also don't like what they're doing to you, so high five or not.
And not fan of the name, as we said, but...
Yeah.
It's still, you know she's effective. And I mean, they had Gallows and Anderson getting beat by Hank and Tank this week and all the stuff going on there.
Hank and Tank are awesome.
Yeah.
Hank and Tank versus the War Raiders. Let's go.
That would be great.
It would be
You're
a lot of fun.
Not the only one that wants that to happen.
Because let's be real as well. Because it's not a pay-per-view, we don't know everything that's happening. There's only 4 matches listed. They're going to fill 2 hours with more than 4 matches.
Yeah, it still says Punk appears as well. So maybe he's coming out before. I mean, I'm curious. Maybe he's kicking off the show in Chicago.
Maybe, yeah.
And maybe he comes out, kicks off the show, says something, and then it leads into the men's match. Because it's odd that the way they put, Punk.
Or on the back of Julia and Stephanie Vacour, CM Punk says, "Oh yeah, by the way, we've also got Delta. Here she is."
Yeah, could you imagine?
Okay, so here's where we do the hot shot booking. What was one of the things in AEW that made me go, "Holy shit, we might actually be in trouble"? When they did the double tap of introducing Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole on the same night, right?
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, you had Punk's first match that night with Darby. You had so much, and it was like, oh, they're gonna just destroy us. Like, holy hell.
So, before we get into who we think is going to win this match, do we think they go hot shot, flip it immediately the following week, and have Stephanie Vacour make her debut in a title match?
Ooh.
It's a rough move.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that I would like it, but it would be a ballsy move.
I think we're getting a title change. I do think we're getting a title change. As much as I think Roxanne, I mean, they could have a rematch. They could do. I mean, there's a lot to still explore, but I just have this feeling of like, hey, I see Julia getting the title. I think they want something being very, very big and noteworthy. They want to report on, oh my God, new women's champion. Yada yada. So I really think that's the direction they're going for here.
Oh, I think we're sort of on Roxy's last stand, and I mean that in a positive way, because she could have gone to the roster a year ago, 2 years ago. She really has, even though people don't like that she turned heel, they questioned it at first or whatever, but both as a babyface and as a heel, I think she's carried the division. I mean, people know that, people say that, but I don't think they realize the depth of the statement that she's been carrying the division for a bit. We've got all kinds of, like I say, Fatal Influence, Lola Vice, Jada Parker, Kalani Jordan, Sol Ruka, Wendy Chu, Rosemary from TNA, Jordan Grace, and all that. We have all these amazing characters and these people that we are hella interested in.
Yep.
Now, multiply that by, Roxanne's at the head.
Yeah,
so exactly. She's doing a lot. But
and like you said, we still have Rosemary, Wendy Chu, all these people that might still be featured on the night itself, or maybe even the next week. Yeah. There's a lot of possibilities.
I wonder, do they give Stephanie Vacour I mean, they would have advertised it by now, I'm sure. But I wonder, do they give her like a debut,
a heater,
like a debut, like a debut squash match type thing?
Yeah, we're just like what Julia just had. Yep.
Yeah. Well, like Jordan Grace did when she showed up and fought Stevie Turner on NXT.
So, what, you want her to beat Chelsea Green as well?
Yo, let's go.
Chelsea Green
she didn't hit the knee perfectly. Fuck off.
Oh. Everybody's debut match is Chelsea Green, apparently. You know.
Yo, Chelsea. I'm sorry, Chelsea Green is a lot like The Miz, like very, very much
reliable
in that multi-tool role at the moment. She goes out there. Nobody cares that I say this in a positive way for once. Nobody cares that she's getting beat because we know Chelsea Green is awesome.
Yes,
it's like Natalya. Like everybody likes to dump on Natalya. Nobody really cares about what she's doing. Nobody's going to care if she loses. But if you've got somebody that needs some carrying along, Natalya is going to make them look great.
Yes, and like you said, I may not be a big Natalya fan, but I respect.
But you know what she brings.
Her, yes, I like what she's done for the company as a whole, how she's pushed the division, how she all backstage worked her ass off to make it more of an equal footing, and I give her a lot for that. I mean, she started off farting, backstage and being embarrassed endlessly.
I remember her coming in with the New Heart Foundation.
Yeah, and then they had this stupid backstage thing with her farting forever, and it was like, why are you embarrassing her endlessly for no reason? And it was just like more degradation of the women at that point. It felt like.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Something that somebody said last night after NXT was over, and I saw it parroted a couple of times. As soon as Stephanie Vacour popped up on screen, a lot of people said, "Okay, it's official. NXT has the best women's division in wrestling." Right?
Now, I thought it was official before that.
I mean, but listen to this though, right? Because I'm gonna drop one list on you, and then I'm gonna drop another list on you.
All right, two for.
So right now,
I really got to pay attention.
And I want you to take this in. Not everybody that I'm going to mention is having great matches all the time. Not everybody that I'm going to mention is even in a wrestling capacity at the moment. I just want to talk about like fully fledged developed characters that are used almost on a weekly basis to whatever their ability is at the time. They've got backstage roles, they've got front stage roles, they've got manager roles, they've got, running the show roles. Everybody has a part to play and nobody's falling by the wayside, right?
Exactly. Everybody's doing something. And it's not just you're out there for the sake of it. Like it's being done well.
So here's the list. Here's the first part of the list anyway, right? Roxanne Perez, Julia, Stephanie Vacour, Kalani Jordan, Adriana Rizzo, Ariana Grace, Ava, Brindley Reese, Carly Bright, Cora Jade, Danny Palmer, Fallon Henley, Gigi Dolan, Izzy Dame, Jada Parker, Jakara Jackson, Jasmine Nix, Carmen Petrovic, Kendall Gray, Lash Legend, Lola Vice. Apparently Miko Satomura is still on the roster. Nikita Lyons.
Oh, I forgot about her as well.
Sol Ruka, Stevie Turner, Tatum Paxley, Thea Hale, Wendy Chu, and still coming to NXT, Delta.
Yeah.
Now, pause for a second. Because we've been touting the NXT-NA relationship, right?
Yeah, for a long time.
So you can also throw in Jordan Grace, Jody Threat, Danny Luna, Alicia Edwards, Steph DeLander, Ash by Elegance, Havoc, Heather Reckless, Killer Kelly, Masha Slamovich, Kylan King, Rosemary, Savannah Evans, Tasha Steeles, and Zaya Brookside.
Don't pass out.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I'm like Excalibur announcing next week's show. But, realistically, like I say, not everybody that I mentioned on the NXT side of things is wrestling every week. Not everybody that I mentioned on the NXT side is even contributing in a wrestling way. Like, I'm looking at people like Stevie Turner, Adriana Rizzo, Ava, obviously. You got a couple that are still out with injury, like your Nikita Lyons.
That's what I was going to say. Isn't she due to be back soon?
I don't know, man. I haven't heard a thing. But her, Cora Jade... there's somebody else that I'm forgetting. Gigi Dolan is out right now with something. But anybody that's not out with a reason like an injury has something to do on the show.
Yes. And something important.
And I'm sorry, what goes under the radar is they gave a brand new title to a brand new project talent in Kalani Jordan. And she's amazing, and I think it's still going under the radar. And
it's been super effective. It's like a great way to...
She's doing the open challenges.
Yeah,
she's and Ren Sinclair. Over. Her and Ren Sinclair made me look at Ren Sinclair differently than I had before, because I thought she was kind of like doing this little bit of a comedy bit. Like, she's the funny girl in the serious group. Like, it would be like throwing Chelsea Green in the Blackpool Combat Club if the Blackpool Combat Club wasn't now full of skinheads.
Yeah, if it wasn't the Ku Klux Combat Club.
Oh, my God. You did the thing. Anyways, but somebody said it, and I was like, oh, NXT's always had an awesome women's division. But then I started like going through, writing things down, and it's like, not everybody's great, because it is developmental.
Yes,
a lot of them
need work.
Yeah, a lot of them are NIL talents, or were NIL talents.
And that's where NXT kind of gets an unfair rap at times, because people are like, oh, well, Dynamite did this. It's still developmental. These aren't guys that work 15 years and like you getting in AEW. You know, they're still learning. Some of these people didn't wrestle 6 months ago, never mind 6 years ago.
And they're doing the Florida loop. They're doing house shows, and they're doing more than one match a week on the show. Because you got to remember, I know nobody watches it, and I know it's kind of the butt of the jokes right now, but they tape NXT.
Yeah.
And then they tape Level Up. Nobody watches it. Fine, you can say that, but it's still more it's more TV experience.
Yes.
And then you got them doing the house shows to say, hey, what can you do outside the Performance Center? So it is what it is, and I will plant my flag. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm at the tipping point right now of saying that NXT is the opposite of every other brand, and I include Raw and SmackDown in this as well, where it's like, here's the show, and we've got some women on it, right? At this point, a lot of weeks, not necessarily on the pay-per-views, but a lot of weeks, it's, here's the show, and yeah, we've got some guys on it. Like, I think it's literally turned that corner. Did I lose you?
And then we get at some of the ways, like the ROH
go.
tag champs. Some of the times, the computer wanted to hiccup there. You know, they go ahead and you're like, well, what happened here? Like, how did they? Oh, they're the champs. And then they just bring them out. Oh, it's Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes, and they're the tag champs, and they're amazing. Don't forget, you know. And it's like, well, where have they been for 6 years, and what have they been doing this whole time? And so there's a lot of that. As we're NXT, like you said, you made a great point. Everyone has something to do, whether it's big, small, learning, inconsequential, or major. People are doing stuff. They had Tony D doing the Rocky thing in the background.
Yeah.
You know,
and you know what?
You got this great story.
And you know what the thing is, though? Like, the Tony D thing was the exact same thing I was going to mention. Not everybody likes the family. Everybody, you know, thinks it's a bit cringe or whatever. And if that's your opinion, that's fine. It's not for everybody, right? But if you like it, Rizzo has been an immense part of the backstage story of that group.
Mm-hmm.
And she's had, I think I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me down in the box below. I think she's had 2 matches on TV.
I think you're right. And that promo she did this week was fucking incredible with Tony.
Stevie Turner. Stevie Turner was like the online streamer chick. And then that really wasn't picking up any traction. So now it's her and Robert Stone, both gearing for Ava's job when Ava's job is actually really Shawn Michaels' job. So it's an NXT kind of acceptable ridiculous. But in that role where they're trying to say, oh, I'm going to bring, what was it? They were like recruiting for NXT, and one of them brought in Ashanti the Adonis, and the other one said, oh yeah, well, I've got Cedric Alexander, and both Cedric Alexander and Ashanti the Adonis were like, yeah, we both kind of were already on our way here. It's fine. And Robert Stone, like, obviously not part of the women's division, but his contributions in a non-wrestling capacity are sort of in the same category as what I would say a Stevie Turner or an Ava or whatever. Ava's fine in the role. Like, you can't totally kill it as a GM role. It's not a role that's meant to be like nailed. It's a role that's there, and she's doing it. And
I agree with that.
And she's got the back, and like kayfabe and in real life, she's got the backing of CM Punk, William Regal, and Shawn Michaels. Not bad people to have in your back pocket, and consider who her dad is. She's fine.
She's doing very well for herself, and there's a lot of things coming up that is
and there's nothing
going to be changing the tide.
We always say this, right? There's nothing wrong, and I always use Corey Graves as the example, but the Corey Graves thing is kind of a really sad thing, and I don't want to make it sad. There's nothing wrong with, okay, either you can't wrestle, or wrestling isn't what you have to contribute right now, and deciding you have other things to offer the show.
Yeah.
And I think, like, oh, well, they gave her the back role because she failed as a wrestler. No, she decided that this wasn't her strength, or they decided that this wasn't her strength right now. And what I've said the whole time, her time as GM, we don't know if she's in the gym with HBK every other Friday, working on shit, becoming a better wrestler in secret, while she's putting on this GM role. Same thing could be true of Stevie
exactly.
Turner. Same thing could be true if Robert Stone decides he wants to wrestle again. Be Robbie E. Woo, woo, woo.
There's a lot of ways to make it work.
Exactly.
You're not wrong.
And I think a lot of the, if they're not wrestling every week, then they're not doing anything. And it's like, well, maybe on the show that you watch.
Yeah, but not
Sorry.
Not here, not us, not what we're going for.
Like, Stevie Turner's going to get in the ring a lot faster than Renee Paquette. And I like Renee Paquette, so I don't know why I picked her as an example. But anyways, let's quickly, because I know you got to go. I know you got a hard out in a couple of minutes. Pause.
We're doing good. But one of the things I wanted to bring up to you, too, I mean, we've got so much coming up. And just quickly, like I said before, We've had just a really good week with Raw. Was very exciting. They had a lot of great things, and I like the continuing storyline between like Braun and Bronson. We saw Jey Uso, who really needed a win here. He's called Main Event Jey, but he's lost so much. So we're like, all right. So we've got this really good momentum pretty much on every side of things. And then one thing we didn't get to mention is Bound for Glory. So tonight we kind of already, let the cat out of the bag. But Joe Hendry will be taking on, it's like, he's going to be taking out Frankie Kazarian tonight. And we already kind of told you who the main event will be. So we know Hendry's going there. But
I still want to know, because this to me right now, and we've been saying it, this debut on CW feels bigger than Halloween Havoc, purely because we haven't had any on-screen discussion of Halloween Havoc yet, other than the fact that it exists.
Exactly.
I am intensely interested in the level of NXT participation in Bound for Glory.
And when we're done here, I also want to see, obviously tonight's TNA episode. And me watching TNA, I never watch TNA. I would never watch the weekly program. I would be sent matches that I would watch, but I just couldn't. I'm sorry. I tried at times. I never got into it.
I told you I finally gave in and got the service.
Yes, and now, but now it's at a place where it's like, shit, this is enjoyable. And not to say it was always bad, but it wasn't great. It had a lot of WCW 2000 things going on with it.
Spoilers are out there, so what I found, even with the service, I don't necessarily have to watch it on the night. Like, I probably, 9 times out of 10, I probably throw it on a Friday before SmackDown.
Which is good, yeah. Have that.
And it's digestible, and they've already cut it down to the hour and a half length, getting the commercials out of it, and the service is great, by the way. If anybody's out there that's a TNA fan that hasn't gotten TNA Plus, it's worth it. I love the way it operates. If you can operate Netflix, you can operate NXT or TNA Plus.
Exactly.
In 5 minutes or less, I do want to touch on the following week's NXT, just because next week we're going to be previewing other things. Obafemi versus Tony D is going to be a lot of fun. I don't see Tony D winning, but
no. That's going to be a great, great fun match. And obviously, Javon taking on Orton. I almost hope that his reaction was, genuine.
Genuine, yeah. You mentioned that last time.
And just, since then, we've seen him, just really kind of hone in with this match. And we've seen stuff on Twitter of them going back and forth. So I'm excited. Somehow they made it bigger than it originally was. And this week is supposed to be upcoming a big deal for AEW as well, because it's their 5-year anniversary show, Dynamite 5. And the only thing we have announced is Ospreay and Ricochet. And that's just happening because, they had a match where they flipped a lot beforehand. So no thanks. That's what's competing with the CW debut. Doesn't feel like it's on equal footing.
No. The week where they're competing is the 8th, not the 1st.
Oh. They're not. Well, no, I know night to night, but I'm saying next week. Their show Dynamite 5.
Oh, just as far as general interest.
Not the same
night.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the Tuesday Night War is on the 8th.
On the 8th, yeah, that's going to be night 2 of the CW debut.
which is what we're talking about now. Obafemi, Tony D. Unless Tony D turns heel, which is funny because he's a mobster who kills people, so he's already kind of a heel.
Yeah.
He turns more heel. He turns so much heel he broke his ankle. But no, like the way that when they came face to face for the first time and Tony D didn't back down and he just planted him in the ring.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind a surprise victory here, but I'm not. But I'm not hanging my hat on it. Obafemi in the main event picture, like not even a year into his run on NXT, would be a fantastic success story.
Absolutely.
You gotta decide who you, because Obafemi's not really face or heel, he's just kind of a destroyer, right?
Yeah.
So he could face Trick or Ego in equal measure. So
realistically, he could take on anybody and it'll work. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of the glory of this right now, is that,
imagine
these...
Obafemi goes to Bound for Glory and fights and puts himself in the TNA title picture. And so now we have Joe Hendry versus Nick Nemeth versus potentially AJ Styles versus Obafemi.
How do you stop him? That's the thing. And no one seemed to figure that out yet. So I am curious to see how do they, topple the big man since he's been champion.
It's a lot like Braun Breaker. It's like he's big and he's strong, but it's not just that. Like, he's scary fast for a dude his size.
He's effective. He's
truly
he's not.
I know the whole thing is PCO. PCO is not human, but Obafemi is also not human. Obafemi versus PCO would be a lot of fun.
That would be. That's some. But see, look at all the names. We're like, this would be fun.
That's the irresistible force versus the immovable object. The guy that can hurt you versus the guy that doesn't want to have pain.
Exactly.
Oh my God, he's going to take on Ilya Dragunov, and Ilya Dragunov's going to enjoy the pain and jerk off. Anyways,
but here's the thing too. It's not like he's no selling. You have to make that completely known, because I look back to this week. Moxley gets attacked walking out, or the week before, excuse me. And Private Party is going to nail him, and Moxley just stands there. He no sold to the point where it was like egregious. And it's just disappointing, because I'm sitting here looking at these things and I'm like, you guys, what are you failing on here?
Can I say double team pile driver on the edge of the apron, and 2 minutes later you're back in the match?
Yeah, exactly. Like, where's the we just don't have that anymore. Like that sense of realism, and that's why I've enjoyed NXT. And they kind of haven't really gone like mask off, over the rails, nuts yet.
And you know what? It's true what Enzo Amore said. I get a bigger pop sitting on the apron waiting for a tag, shuffling my feet.
Damn straight.
Yeah. Javon Evans, Randy Orton. There's going to be a ridiculous RKO out of nowhere.
Oh,
that's
it.
What I'm. Everything else they do in this match is building to that.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to reduce
Moxley
it.
reversing his basically top rope superplex with Darby into the Death Rider.
That was really cool.
That was great.
Credit where it's due.
For that.
I will say as well, if we're going to be equal with AEW, the one thing I will say that happened on Blancham was the retirement of the FTW Championship, and you got a really cool father-son moment with Hook and Taz. That was really nice. That was really cool.
Seth Negan just said, hey, let's go ahead. You retired the belt. Let's go ahead now and get the conclusion to the Hook Jack Perry feud that started with it's real glass, bitch, and cry me a river, all that, because he was facing Hook. So let's get for the TNT title. I agree with Sith. That could be a hell of a package, a whole thing. And the reason I brought up AEW again at the end wasn't just to be contrarian and to give them a little bit of credit where it's due, but Tommy Dreamer came out and he's like, talking about the NXT and the press conference segment and all that, and he's like, I love Roxanne's part because Roxanne put her over while ripping up Julia, basically saying this is a big match for me too, not just you. Yeah. And he said, I was like, holy crap, they have 3 dream matches for wrestling fans, which all will be seen. He said there's a payoff for all, and the end payoff is Stephanie Vacour. So he's like, he says right here, I'm like, wow, you have a lot of really big matches just in NXT. And he's right, because on the main roster, we've got, fucking Punk and McIntyre is leading the charge with this Hell in a Cell match. One of the greatest feuds we've had in ages, and it's like
we don't even have time right now to get into the cinema between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns.
Yes,
we are going to talk about that next week.
Title, but we're going to have to cover that.
We are going to talk about that next week because I have a lot of thoughts on that. Ironically, for WWE, who apparently doesn't do tag team wrestling, because we already jumped into the Javon Evans Randy Orton thing, I'm gonna have to end on A-Town Down Under versus Fraxium. Yeah,
I mean, and you know what? I almost wonder, like, could you imagine they pull a swerve where Axiom, they end up having him and Nathan just dissolve into total just a shit moment where, like, they're not synced up, they lose the titles, and everyone doesn't see that happening because, we think A-Town Down Under is going to break up.
There's a part of me that would love a comedy moment here where the match doesn't even start because both sets of partners are fighting their own partners.
Right.
Like Theory's facing Waller, Fraser's fighting Axiom. Whatever.
Axiom,
I don't want that to happen.
But
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think because he's more of a mouthpiece than an in-ring show-off on the main roster than he is in NXT. I think a lot of people are going to remember why we love Grayson Waller in this match.
He hasn't had a really good match in a long time. So.
Well, no, they have good matches because I think his
one-on-one. I'm saying we haven't really seen him showcase himself in a while.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
maybe getting him to go extra here would really kind of remind people, like you said.
I think the what do you want to call it? The charisma between him and Theory as a team works. I mean, they're putting on this extra layer of, okay, they're not getting along right now, but put that aside, they work as a tag team. They bounce off each other really well, like the loudmouth and the straight man almost.
Yeah.
But people are going to, because he's going up against exciting people like Axiom and Nathan Frazier, who are sneakily one of the best tag teams in WWE right now, it's going to pull it out of Waller. No disrespect to Austin Theory, why he was so hot in NXT before he got called up.
Absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to him being in the ring with a team that I think is going to bring that out of him. I think out of the four of them, Theory is going to be the more meticulous. I'm not a wrestler. I'm more of a superstar. He'll be like the base for a lot of the high-flying stuff, which is just as important. Doesn't get the credit it deserves, but it's just as important.
It is.
There's two stories going on with both of those teams where Fraxium has this thing going on right now where they always sound like they're going to break up, but instead the people that they're facing break up. Like, people started saying that after the Rascals thing happened.
Yeah.
And now with Frazier,
that's a great point too.
Frazier and Axiom as well. Now, I think Fraxium's keeping the titles. I don't think A-Town Down Under are coming down for an NXT run, although I would love it if they did. The team right now, I mean, Javon's got his own match with Randy Orton on this particular night, but Javon Evans and Cedric Alexander are really putting themselves out in the forefront as well.
Yeah.
And we have to hit on the obvious rumor of whoever wins this match, is this where we get the stare down with a debuting Motor City Machine Guns?
I certainly could see that happening. There's so many surprises, possibilities, and so I think we get the Motor City Machine Guns on the second show, the 8th.
Yes.
When they go head to head.
That's what I mean, yeah.
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, I think that's more than likely a lock. With all the news, it's basically what's going on for that. I really feel like they're going to be here sooner than later. So, what a better time to do it than in St. Louis?
Apparently, we're not getting Lucha Brothers. Apparently, they said they don't want to go to NXT first, which is fine, fair enough if that's the request they want to put in, and if they know where they want to be, then all the power to them. But if the trade-off is NXT gets Motor City Machine Guns instead, while they're doing so much partnership with TNA, which is so intrinsically linked to Motor City Machine Guns, I think it's good. And as I say, I've got this nagging feeling that they're gonna hotshot the women's title, and they're going to announce right at the end of the show on night one, right as the show goes off the air, whoever won out of Julia and Roxy is defending against Stephanie Vacour next week. You better tune in. I have a feel. I'm not basing that on anything other than we don't get... WWE's given us a lot of surprises. They haven't given us a whole lot of 1-2 punches. And this would be a really interesting opportunity to do so.
Yeah,
Because then you get into the debate of... Do you put that in the main event of night 2? Do you put the Orton match just because it's the Orton match? Do you save the tag team match till the end of the show if you're debuting the Motor City Machine Guns? It becomes a really, really thick thicket of matches depending on who's going to be in the main event of that second show. Because the second show was the one they had to downsize. So I almost hope they come out with guns blazing on the second night more.
Especially knowing they're going against AEW.
St. Louis, well, that too. But just like, hey, you guys didn't think it was a good idea to buy tickets. Next time we come around, I bet you're going to buy some tickets.
Exactly. Look what you missed out on. And, and really, don't saturate the market. Make it crave for more.
For sure. But it's weird, and I'm leaving the Tuesday Night War thing.
Thirsty.
I'm leaving the Tuesday Night War thing out for a second because that's also definitely a factor.
Yeah.
But because night 1 sold so well and night 2 not so much, to the point where they had to move a building, which I still think was the right decision.
I'm glad they did that.
Yeah.
I'd rather them do that than say, oh, no, we're fine, with their head in the sand and have everything tarped
and put a
off.
curtain over half the building.
Yeah.
But no. But I think night 1 is the debut. Night 1 is the debut. It's in Chicago. You've got Chicago-made Punk there to make it even better. 5.5 thousand seats have now sold, or whatever the case may be, right? But I think it's really interesting to see what they do on night 2 on October 8th, because I feel like that's the show where they have more to prove.
Absolutely.
They took an L on the attendance. They moved the building. They made a constructive, hey, this isn't working, we need to change something decision. But now we're going to make you regret not buying a ticket. Not vindictively. But we're showing you what you could have missed, type of idea. So there's a weird level of excitement leapfrogging 1 week into October 8th. Also because at this point we only know of 3 matches on the show and nothing else. But Sexy Red is there, so I can at least not care for 5 minutes.
Exactly. And there's even that we had fun with her last time, and I'm not into the music and that whole scene of things, but it was fun just to go ahead and...
Well, that's the thing. It's one of those things where it's not a match, it's not a segment, it's not an ongoing story. So the fact that Sexy Red is there and I don't care doesn't take away from the show. It just means if you ask me in that 5-minute segment, do you care what's happening right now? I'm going to say no. But hey, I'm going to see Obafemi squash Tony D again in 5 minutes. I'm going to see the Motor City Machine Guns debut, probably in 45 minutes. I'm going to see Javon Evans, who's so quickly one of the most popular guys in NXT, get a chance to face Randy Orton in his hometown for a huge pop.
Exactly.
Do I care about the 5 minutes that Sexy Red is out there, flaunting her very, very, very natural tits? Not really. I don't care that I don't care. And that's a statement on the general quality of NXT and how excited I am about these 2 shows, that even the stuff I don't care about, I don't care that I don't care about them. They've reached a point with me. They have all the free passes in the world.
You don't care that you don't care.
Yes. All the stuff we talked about at the beginning of, what's it going to look like, the logo and all that kind of thing. Yes, I'm interested, I'm curious, and whatever. But I also, as soon as I see, that's what they did, I don't have to care anymore, and I'm going to go back to all the stuff that we're talking so excitedly about tonight.
Exactly, and it doesn't make it the absolute, a logo is a logo and a song is a song. I don't like the SmackDown theme, but does it ruin SmackDown? No. Would it get me a little more pumped up and hyped to have that, sure, but... it's
I would rather have an entrance song that I don't like than 5 more years of babyface suffer and succotash Roman Reigns rather than the Tribal Chief and the Bloodline saga that we've had the past 5 years. If the trade-off for that, if the trade-off for cinema is a bad concert, I really don't care. I'll go take a piss.
Exactly.
I will go take a piss. It's fine.
One of the things we didn't get to, but next week I want to bring up to you is with all the media going on for NXT, the San Francisco local news, KFOR, went ahead and did a little expose, kind of, if you want to call it, with Trick Williams and whatnot, and they went over the top 10 stars to come from NXT. So it'd be cool to go over that list and see what you think of it, and give you some of your input, my input, and see who you think some of the top star men and women on the list. So it's not, X amount, they need 5 guys and 5 girls. No, they just give you their top 10, their thoughts. So it's pretty cool to have that.
Twitter's going to explode if number 1 is, somebody that looks like me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey, you'll see. You'll be surprised.
Anybody that hates me for actually having an opinion isn't listening anymore, so I think we're safe. My buddy, my pal, my chum, Jake DeMarco, tell them where to find you, buddy.
You can find me on the Spaz Phoenix channel as of right now, and then you can go ahead and find me this Tuesday. We'll be live. That's right, live after NXT, doing the review of it. It's going to be a great time. Come hang out. It's youtube.com/ I believe it's Countdown Ended. You can go ahead and just look it up. So Jake DeMarco Countdown.
I was going to say,
Ended.
I think you can search both. I've looked you up by both, even though I have a subscription to you because YouTube is flawed.
Yeah. Hey, so long as we got it, we got it. That's what matters.
Got to get you over on Rumble and Spotify and such.
I know. I need to diversify, but we'll get there. Slowly but surely.
But Jake, diversity is our strength.
That's right. DEI leads you to die. That's what we said.
This is the era of joy. I want to punch myself in the face. You guys know where to find me or you wouldn't be here. I've been Spaz. This has been Super Sexy Jake DeMarco. This has been your preview for both nights of the CW debut on NXT. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later. But for right now, me and Super Sexy Jake DeMarco are tagging out. Bye, guys.
To the CW.